Hello, everyone. Welcome and congratulations on your admissions to Berkeley. My name is Esteem Brumfield, alumni of 2019, and will be the moderating tonight's panel on Alumni Day, Life After Cal. And we're joined tonight with some amazing UC Berkeley alumni, Go Bears. And we're happy to field some questions. Tonight will be recorded, and we're going to have a live stream up on YouTube. So we're very excited about that. Feel free to put your questions in the chat function, and we're going to get to as many as we can tonight. We're very excited to meet you, learn about your interests, and hope you learn a lot about Cal tonight. So I think we'll get started with our panel. Would love for each of you to introduce yourselves, if you could, just with your name, the year you graduated, your major, and what are you doing now after Cal? And I think I can start with Annalise.
Sure, hello. I'm Annalise Smith-Hinckley. I graduated from Cal in 2010 with a BA in English Literature, and that was in the College of Letters and Science. And I currently now live in Berkeley, and I am a writer and a realtor.
Can we popcorn to Jason? Or Johnson, excuse me, Johnson.
Hi, my name is Johnson. I graduated in 2017. I studied in the College of Natural Resources, and so I got a degree in microbial biology and the Graduate School of Education with a minor in education. I currently live in Brisbane, Australia, where I am a medical student at the University of Queensland Ochsner Clinical School, where students spend 2 years learning preclinical things in Brisbane and 2 clinical years in the Ochsner Clinical School in New Orleans.
That's wonderful. Very exciting. How about you, Kevin?
Hi, my name is Kevin. I graduated from Berkeley in 2019. I was in the College of Engineering studying mechanical engineering after switching twice from civil environmental into IOR, industrial engineering operations research, and then settled on mechanical engineering late. So if you're interested in exploring different routes in COE, I sort of had that path. I had a minor in public policy, and I worked for 2 years in an aerospace company in San Diego before coming to Columbia University in the city of New York on a federal government fellowship in robotics and controls focused master's.
I love it. And Mark, last but not least.
Last but not least, I'm the old guy, I guess. My name is Mark Wayne. I'm a Cal grad of 1994, which is probably before most of y'all were even born. I majored in economics, College of Letters and Science. I was intent on going into computer science, and then took a left turn. Then went into, actually graduated Cal and went into a career in software. And then about 16 years ago, started my own company called Cafe Lux. It's a coffee company in Los Angeles.
That's really awesome. Very
Fiat,
exciting.
Fiat Lux.
Fiat Lux, there you go. That's a Bears slogan for folks who are watching. But you come to Cal, you'll start to know all the lingo. So I think I want to just jump right in. Annalise, can I start with you again, if that's okay? What were some of the reasons that you chose Berkeley, especially over some of the other offers that you might have gotten at the time that you applied?
Yeah, so I had never had any intention of going to Berkeley. Really, I applied because it is a great school, but I had this very romanticized idea of the walled Hogwarts private university, and I was going to go off into this retreat and maybe not, study magic, but something was going to happen there that Berkeley didn't quite fit the mold for. So Berkeley is this sprawling campus. It's in the middle of the city, certainly not walled off, and it's a public school. And I didn't turn it down. You get to choose your other school before you have to turn schools down. So I got a full ride to USC and I accepted it because the financial aid was great. And I was like, yeah, USC, cool. I'm from San Diego. It's flashy. And I went to click the button that said no to Berkeley, and I physically could not do it. And I don't remember this part, but my mother tells me I called her crying and said, I think I made a mistake. And I just felt it in my heart. So we flew up to Cal that day to go experience it in person, see what it was like. And I got to campus and I just had never been around such a diversity of students, both in the demographics and in thought. There's just so much here. And I still remember I wrote in one of my essays, I had written that I was looking for a place that would make sense for me with the multitude of sort of ostensibly disparate things that I like and that I am. And when I got to Cal's campus, and there were all these student groups out there, and I just thought, my God, there are so many different kinds of people here and so much going on. And at the time, I just thought, I remember, and bless my 17-year-old self for thinking this when I was otherwise thinking not very much about my future, that, and no disrespect to USC, it's a great school, but I thought USC was how I felt at the time, and who I was, and Berkeley was everything that I wanted to be. And so I bet on that and I chose it, and I'm just so glad. And since then, obviously, I'm still living in Berkeley, 10, 12 years later. And that proved to be the case. The feeling I had the moment that I stepped on campus was absolutely proved to be the case. And I've just never been more grateful that I went here. It changed my entire life.
That's a really hard follow-up for any of the other panelists.
I'm sorry. No, it's
no, I love it. Everything you said really touches me because I'm also from Berkeley. So like, through and through, Berkeley is my home, and everything you said is like how I feel about it as well.
Yeah.
I want to pivot over to Kevin. You talked about exploring different majors. So what were some of the reasons that you chose Cal over some other of your options?
Sure. So I know we met in New York a week ago, so it's great meeting you in person. You had such a great story that have been so fortunate to run into. But I would say, I think for me, I was interested in engineering, but I really wanted to have like a social science piece to it. I was interested, I did a public policy minor. I was looking at like poly-econ as like political economy as a minor, and other sort of like related areas, because I was interested in, doing things that are technical, but with strong, like, social impact and policy impact. And I think Berkeley just has really that drive. I looked at a lot of East Coast schools, some that were, had really good, programs in these areas, and it was a tough choice, but I think Berkeley just has this energy of like social activism, an energy of like sort of encouraging empathy, the amount of like socioeconomic diversity that Berkeley has, and the variety that the campus brings with how dynamic it is. I think it's very different. I'm not going to diss my grad school or anything like that, but I think at the East Coast you have different institutions that are smaller, probably older. But Berkeley supposedly has a percentage of Pell Grant recipients that are greater than any school in the Ivy League or the Ivy League combined. And I think that really says something. And that's one part I miss. I have people tell me that yes, you may want to live in other areas and stuff like that, but you are still clearly a Bay Area kid. And I've had friends who say like you just can't get to Berkeley out of you, and then you realize that you can't. Berkeley's just a unique place in the world, and people may think that Berkeley is like, some people in Berkeley think that they are a little bit different from the rest of the US and other areas of the world. And you think like, but there's other areas like, kind of similar, but no, Berkeley is truly unique. So.
Thank you so much for that.
No worries.
How about you, Mark?
When I was applying to colleges, as I had mentioned before, I was hell-bent on EECS, electrical engineering, computer science, or computer science through the College of Letters and Science. So when I came in undeclared. I had applied to only public schools because of the financial aid and financial impact. And I remember, gosh, it was as I was getting ready to decide, two other UC schools offered me admission directly to their engineering programs. But I was like, but Cal's the best. I should go to Cal. And so that's what I did.
It's hard to beat. Johnson, what were some of the thoughts that were going through your mind at the time?
Yeah, a lot of the thoughts that I had were very similar to what other people in the panel have already stated. I was also committed to another school. I was committed to UC San Diego. And I was telling people I was going. I really wanted to be by the beach. I'm from the Sacramento area, so I also wanted to be a little further away from home. I was like, Cal is too close. It's 2.5 hours. My parents can just show up. But I went to Triton Day, and my parents dragged me to Cal Day. They were like, you have to see this campus before you say no, because my mom really wanted me to go to Cal. But what struck me about Cal Day and what struck me about being in that space was just the community. There's lots of people there at Cal Day, as a lot of you must have seen if you went, but it also just felt so much like home. And I'm a big proponent of going to schools where you have the right fit. And that's how I chose my undergrad. That's how I chose my master's institution. It's actually how I chose my medical school right now, just visiting and seeing what feels right and what where you feel at home. And for me, a lot of that was that community. A lot of it was knowing that there's a space at Cal for everyone, no matter what you're interested in, no matter how you identify or anything like that. You can find your community, you can find your family. And my Cal family, it's been years now. I graduated in 2017. We still do Secret Santa every year. We ship gifts all over the world now because we live in 4 different continents, but we make it work. We were doing Zoom calls before it was cool and it was a thing. And so you really just find that family, you find that fit. And I think that was really important.
I love that story. And I love that you mentioned Cal Day. Having grown up in Berkeley as a kid, I used to go to Cal Day for all the free samples. So I already knew that Berkeley was the right choice. All the free snacks that were there, my friends and I would go run around. I want to stay with you, Johnson, and ask, looking back now, so you're in graduate school, you knew why you wanted to go to Berkeley. Are there aspects looking back now that make you realize that Berkeley was the right choice after all, in addition to what you knew going in?
Yeah, what I wasn't, like, I knew that Berkeley was a good school and I knew that, you know, you had like proximity to excellence, but I didn't just realize how close you are to people who are really at the forefront of their field. I'm in a science field and science moves so rapidly. Medicine moves so rapidly. There are stats that say that the entire knowledge of breadth of knowledge that we have in medicine is duplicated every couple hours. And so it moves so fast. And being able to have that excellence, I remember my freshman seminar. So these are really small classes that you have with a professor and you just learn about things, random things out there. I did mine on diabetes. And that semester, the professor, Randy Schreckman, won the Nobel Prize. And so having that just excellence and being able to talk to this man and like pick his brain apart and see how he felt beforehand and afterwards and like where a lot of us wanted to be later on was really helpful to me and something that I wish I took more advantage of while I was at Cal, reaching out to professors and getting that expertise and really creating that network. I know I came in and I was like, I'm an 18-year-old, I know nothing. I barely know what a mitochondria is. And these are people who are like changing the world, but they're there to educate you and they're there to educate the next generation. And so taking advantage of that is something that I wish I did more of. And that's the thing that I really liked going to Cal.
And how about you, Mark? You've had time now in the professional world. What did that look like for you looking back?
Just to piggyback on what Johnson was saying, I mean, you know, 3 of my professors were in, you know, the Obama administration. It was crazy. It's like, wow, this is, you know, where, but also just to piggyback on Johnson's comment, you know, I was a kid and I never, you know, never really had the even call it the courage to go and talk to these professors. But you have such proximity to these amazing forward thinkers and it's something that, you know, looking back now, I think that I wish I would have taken more advantage of. You know, in my circuitous career path, looking back on Cal as to, you know, what it meant to me to go there, was really about, you know, for one, a demonstration or a proof that, you know, that I was, you know, good enough to be with the best of the best, you know, that you know, there was no class status or anything. Everybody was equal and everybody was basically, you know, it was an amazing meritocracy. And so coming out of there, I felt that has carried with me throughout my entire professional career.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome to hear. Fantastic. I want to remind students out there who are watching this, please feel free to put any of your questions you have in the chat function. We're excited to get to a few of your questions. We look forward to seeing what you're interested in knowing about. Annalise, I want to pose the same question to you. You've had a dynamic professional experience now. You developed a lot of skill sets from Berkeley, and then you built on those skill sets after Berkeley. Looking back, how do you know it was the right choice?
Yeah, well, so I only ever wanted to be an English major my whole life. So I think some people end up as English majors. That's kind of the joke, right? It's like, oh, you end up with a BA in English. I only ever wanted a BA in English. I just always I wanted to read and write. And when I came to Cal that day, it was raining. It was very romantic. And the library at Cal, if you've not been here to campus, is absolutely beautiful. And so I was like, this is it. I'm just going to spend all of my undergrad time drinking coffee, staying up late, writing. And that is not how it went. I will tell you, I did party a lot. I also went to my classes. So make sure you do that if you come here. But I was getting close to graduating and I had no career path. So I had a great time in college. And honestly, it's not a bad thing. You come to Berkeley and there's so much to do and study that a lot of the great experiences, you just dip your toes into everything. Like I was an English major, but I took 4 other languages. I studied neuroscience. I took some Air Force classes. And so of course graduation came and I didn't have a plan. I was a camp counselor at the Y every summer, which I loved, but wasn't going to be a long-term thing. And so I got a job as an SAT tutor. I'm one of the people who loves the SATs, even though I think they're biased and unfair, technically speaking. That's a whole nother, I love tests. So I became an SAT tutor, and then I was working at Banana Republic because I had to pay the bills. And I was like, I got to find a full-time job, and I don't know what I want to do, but I like working with people and I like marketing. And it was through the people that I knew and I had met through Cal and alumni who helped me get my first full-time job, which was at Cal with the Alumni Association as a scholarships coordinator, which resonated with me is because I had always been financial aid student myself. And throughout my life, I've mostly been in marketing, and I just recently became a realtor, and I just finished my first novel, and I'm working on with an editor to get that published, but you don't get paid to be a novelist until you're paid to be a novelist. So throughout this whole, 12 years since I graduated, I feel so privileged to have had Cal to teach me largely that it was okay to explore and to not have a plan. And if you have a plan, you will have a place at Cal too. But if you don't have a plan, there's so much to do, and it really rewards learning in and of itself. And it's made it easy, at least in my experience, to transition through a number of careers, just because the soft skills I learned and the curiosity that was fostered at Cal helped me parlay a lot of skills into different positions. And I'll tell you, they tell you that IVs are the way to get connections, but Cal, the alumni base at Cal is aggressively prideful, and they will help you find a job. And so the right decision for me was just that it made it okay for me to always be a curious person for my entire life. And I think that in itself is worth everything to me. Sorry, that was a long answer.
No,
I feel very strongly about it.
I love that answer because I think it really, to me, it communicates a healthy relationship with learning and a healthy relationship with academia. And I think that's particularly important. I know that the folks who are in graduate programs can agree with me. You need to have a healthy relationship with academia if you want to have longevity. So I think your answer was beautiful. And congratulations on a book deal. That's very exciting.
Well, I don't have the deal yet. If anyone who's watching's parents publishing company, feel free. But no, still excellent. In the editing phase right now. Thank you.
And Kevin, how about you? How did you know Berkeley was the right fit?
Oh,
Looking
wow.
back.
So I grew up in the Bay Area too, and my last semester, I think at school, I just, got kind of like, I took most of the AP, so I was, taking the easier ones in my senior. So what I did is what was I doing? I was taking multivariable calculus actually at Berkeley. So that was kind of fun, and I, was walking around. I was like, it's interesting because I was, I went around, but I remember just, I don't know, just like I've been to other schools, like I was looking on the East Coast, but I think it was that winter where the 6 feet of snow scared me in the Boston area. It was a really bad Northeast winter. I was like, ooh, I don't know if I could do that. And then I was looking at school in upstate New York, and it was like 7-8 feet, and and then I remember but I think there's something in me when I went to campus. There's this always this type of magic that I felt like when I walked by the admissions office. Actually, I always said a small wish or prayer walking by. I don't know. It's just something was right, and I got to know a lot of the campus. Being in the Bay Area, I think that was it was just sort of a big deal on that end when I got in, because I knew it was difficult, and I think it was just the right balance of what I could do and the interest that I had on the engineering side and the social sciences side. I do have to admit, being Bay Area kid, it helped a little bit, but yeah, I have the access, my background, you're probably wondering, but I remember going to big games as a kid because my dad never went. But my grandfather did, but he never finished because he had to go into the Korean War. So he got drafted, and he couldn't finish. He was in the School of Business then, I think, before it was called Haas. And then I think, doing that, my grandmother, partially, I was looking at other areas, but, finishing at Cal when she went, she even said like, oh, you finished for my late husband too, that I never met, that he died before I was born and everything like that. So I guess there's some legacy, some like geographical, proximity, but I think, the diamond is how dynamic Cal is just really unparalleled versus a lot of other institutions. Other institutions are great, I'm sure, but I think like Berkeley having its excellence, but also its size and its, amount of diversity and areas that you can go into, you just have such a great alum network that, Annalise also talked about. Like, yes, I'm at, at the graduate level in an Ivy League school, you have connections in certain areas, but I think at Berkeley, there's a sense of pride, with not just, the sports and football, but just, of spirit that I think is not really as strong at some of these. It's very different on the East Coast in some of these areas, but I think at Berkeley, it's definitely more meritocratic and also more down to earth too. And I miss that almost every day, even moving to New York. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. Attending an Ivy League graduate school, I'm always surprised when there's no like "Go Bears" type slogan. I was like, "Where's the spirit?" I was like, "I don't understand. What's wrong?"
Yeah, Columbia, we joke like there's barely any. I should say one school, but yes, like terrible. The
not
football,
to throw any school under the bus.
About. Yeah.
Oh, and on the point that you raised, Annalise, the library at Berkeley, stunning. I stayed at the Rhodes House with my friend who did the Rhodes program. She showed me the libraries at Oxford. I did a semester at Princeton. I saw their libraries. I can say with certainty, Berkeley's library is just unsurpassed. I want to, I think it's important for incoming college students to be prepared for the challenges, particularly challenges that we can't anticipate after graduation. What were some of the challenges that you experienced transitioning from college to a career? And how did Berkeley and the resources help you rise to that challenge? Anyone care to start that off?
Well, one of the things I'll just add is always ask which line you're standing in before standing in it. having to be in the financial aid line every year, to wait in line for an hour and a half to drop off a packet or something, so sometimes you're just like, hey, is this the right line to stand for to drop that off? And they're like, oh, I'll just take it. I'm like, okay, here you go.
This is just for your Cal ID.
Sorry, that was not necessarily the spirit of the question, but
it's a good question for incoming, or a good point for incoming students.
Yes.
Well, I'll finish my earlier point, I guess, for this question, which is I had zero career plan besides that I was like going to be a famous author, which is not what pays you when you're graduating from college. And I actually could have graduated early, but I was having a good time and I didn't have a plan. So I just stayed and then didn't come up with a plan. So like I said, I took 2 part-time jobs because I wanted to stay in Berkeley and I knew I wanted to be in this area. What I did is I lived in the co-ops while I was at Cal, which is a housing alternative to the dorms or apartments. I'm doing a breakout room session after this if you want to know more about that. I joined their alumni association when I was graduating and continued to work with them. And it was one of my board members who worked at Cal who helped me get my foot in the door to start applying to jobs at Cal. She was like, you already have an affinity for Cal. You're great with community mobilizing. You should go this route. And my alums really stepped up and offered to write me recommendation letters, because I just didn't have close relationships with my professors. My department didn't necessarily facilitate that or require that. And I wasn't going to grad school, right? So I didn't think about that. But so I had this alumni connection from being in a chapter, and they helped me get my first job, which I'd said was on campus. And so for me, the Cal community and being a part of that, even as a volunteer, was what got me my job. And then through that, I was able to move into marketing. But it was purely because of Cal alumni that I have a job now, let alone when I graduated.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And I can jump onto that as well, sorry. And talking about, I finished my microbiology in education, and I knew I wanted to go to med school, but I also knew that I knew a lot about cells and very little about humans and very little about systems. And so I went to grad school, and I did my post-baccalaureate program at the University of Pennsylvania. And while I was doing that, I was like, I need to make some money. I need to get a part-time job. So I joined the Cal Alumni Club in Philadelphia, the Philly Club. And the president of the club actually is friends with my soon-to-be principal investigator, so my boss, in a research lab. And I was like, oh, I'm looking for jobs. Like, you're in the sciences. What do you recommend? Like, I had done a lot of wet lab work, but so things with like pipettes. When you think about like science work, wet lab work, but I wanted to pivot into more like clinical work. So I wanted to work with people. I wanted to do medicine. I wanted to be in that space. He's the one who was like, oh, my friend has this job opening for a research assistant. Here's the description. You should look at it. I ended up applying and I ended up getting it. And what I think really helped me was having a strong science background from Cal that had lots of talks about things that were up and coming. So Jennifer Doudna and CRISPR was right at the end of when I was at Cal. So every science class I had from then on out had a thing about CRISPR. And so that was the thing I could talk about, and the thing that I knew very well and very intimately. But also with my education background, I also knew how to talk to people, and I knew how to empathize with students, which turned into me empathizing with patients and I worked specifically in chronic diseases and in cytokine storm diseases. And so these are patients who are going to be on a lifelong therapy. There is no cure for a lot of the diseases that I worked on. And it was, you're going to get a chemotherapy every month for the rest of your life. And as they're being diagnosed and as they're figuring out what does that mean for them, what is that quality of life for them, having these skills of being able to work with people and to be able to communicate effectively and to be able to give them the information they need and the know-how to turn around and say, I don't know that, but I can find that out for you. And that was a big thing for me at Cal, being like, I don't know that, but I have resources and I know how to find those answers now and bringing that to patients. And I think that was a big thing that Cal brought. And a lot of the Cal alumni, when I left grad school and I was starting consulting before I came to med school, I talked to consultants that were from Cal and I was like, how did you break in? What did you do? What is consulting actually like? Consulting, I feel like, is this like black box of like, I consult, but like no one actually knows what you do. And so having those connections and being able to talk through that really helped me get my consulting gig before I came out here. So.
Kevin, can I ask you as well, in addition, if you want to answer the last one, if you leaned into the alumni network, what did that look like? Can you describe?
Sure.
Is it something you reached out through the actual alumni network? Did you reach out through LinkedIn? We have a comment and question in the chat from one of the students, and they're curious to know about, can you talk about how you still have ongoing connections with alum? How did you build those connections, and then how do you maintain it?
I would say what the area that I was looking in, I'm trying to think about alumni that I looked at. I was looking at alumni who worked in the same aerospace industry I was interested in, and sort of like talk about different areas that I could work in. I got my internship through Cal, honestly, because one of my now good friends actually works in the engineering student services area and had a connection with someone at this conference. And then it basically works at this company that he went to this like hiring conference, and this is this hiring conference that I went to, and other people from the College of Engineering to try to get jobs. And that person came up to me, and I mentioned, the student director's name in ESS, and he took interest, and I talked to my director about it, and then he said, "Oh, you should go. The first thing tomorrow morning, go to that booth and talk to them." And I got a job within 30 minutes. Like, he forwarded me over to a director in the San Diego area for that site, and I think that's not directly alumni services, but in terms of people who know people and advocate for you, like Berkeley, like had me do that, and then led me on this trajectory to work at the same company, and led me to have an interest in more like security issues in general with the federal government and international security and all these different things. And I would have never sort of had that. I got rejected from a large other commercial aerospace company 3 times, and if that wouldn't have happened, I would have never been on this path. But in terms of alumni network, I think I would say on LinkedIn they're pretty receptive in general. There's a lot of opportunities, I would say, in New York, like I've been to like, the big game, sort of watch party. There's a lot of people in finance and tech, a lot of people moving out here for tech because, the offices are, growing. San Diego, I went to a lot of the, the football game watch parties and like the yield events and aspects like that. And those are, great way to meet people who work in a variety of different areas. I met people in the local government when I was volunteering after work. I met some people in the aerospace industry, quite a bit in the biotech industry. I think Berkeley has over 500, like 500,000 living alumni. And it's not just in, the Bay Area, people who work in tech or other areas. There's plenty in LA, San Diego. New York, I think, is like the 3rd largest after LA or so. And then, DC has a lot. The capital, I've met some people. I have friends, like I was interested in doing some campaign work, and I know someone in, party headquarters somewhere or other parts of the government. And they may not be as vocal per se as, those who stay in the Bay Area and work in all these, more, lucrative industries per se, but there are people who go around the world. I've met people at Columbia too, who are in the law school and in the public affairs school. Like Berkeley does very well. It sends people to very great careers and also great graduate schools, but also sends people, in areas that have a large social impact, with the most amount of Peace Corps workers and other areas that have significant weight there. And I think that's something of merit too. It's just far ranging. And I think people at Berkeley really care about social good and, spreading, having an impact there.
I can only echo what you said as being absolutely true. I did Fulbright research for a year in South Africa after I graduated. And when people heard the name Berkeley, it opened a lot of doors while I was even in South Africa, because they knew it as a top tier research institution. So there really is a global reach that the university has. Mark, can I ask you, how have you maintained relationships with your alumni?
Well, I mean, I'm originally from New York, but ended up in the Southern California area. And right after college, I moved right back to Southern California. And so, I was always envious of, some of my friends who had stayed and, they live in Berkeley, they still live in Berkeley. It's like, oh, that's so cool. In terms of the alumni, I didn't have the same kind of experiences as the other panelists, except I was on the other side of it. So when I was working at the various companies that I worked at between college, grad school, and then starting my own business, I was usually the first to volunteer to go back to to be the recruiting team at Cal, and so I never missed an opportunity to go visit the campus and to go and recruit people to the various companies that I worked at. I mean, and it's for me. I always provided myself as a resource for people. I didn't, similar to my issues with undergrad, not talking to the professors. I never really availed myself of the resources, but similar to what Kevin was saying, when I was applying for jobs in LA, the fact that I went to Berkeley really kind of elevated my position or my status in the in the hiring decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely.
I was going to say, add something too, like just very quick, living in Southern California, I think, there's really great institutions there. We have a very good, UC in the LA in Westwood, but there is I don't know if it's corny or pretentious or weird, but I don't know, there's something to Berkeley. There's some like sort of like historical essence to it, being the flagship and, just being, there's, of course, the UC system is amazing. And I have people here say like, you have such a great public university system. It's enviable that, California, that sort of culture levels the playing field, provides so many opportunities for those who are working class, middle class, to be able to get a world-class education. But I think, you're even in Southern California or other places, Berkeley has this sort of ring to it because of its excellence and Nobel Prize winners, because of its social activism, with, Mario Savio and, all these discoveries, and just, there's so many different areas. And I think it has that sort of, iconic legacy. And you can't deny it. And I think that's what helped Mark, in those interview rooms, quite frankly.
Mm-hmm. Well, it totally has such a global reach too, beyond. So, when you're in the US and you're looking at schools, for example, there are schools that are very renowned in the US, but if you go elsewhere, including some of the Ivies, and then you go, so everyone talks about them, and then you go elsewhere and no one knows what those schools are. But Berkeley, similar to, there's like some cities in the world, but stereotypically everyone knows them. It's like, it's like London, New York, whatever, Los Angeles, Hong Kong, et cetera, et cetera. Berkeley is that for schools. So, Ivies are great, but Berkeley, you can go anywhere in the world and somebody will know and understand what comes with the name Berkeley. And I just think it's so cool that it has, for whatever that completely ephemeral, intangible quality, that it just is transcendent. I mean, whatever it is, internationally, people understand Berkeley, and that is an incredibly cool thing to be a part of. Like you can go to other countries. You'll find out if you go here. You will go travel to other places and everyone's like, oh, Berkeley. You're like, yeah, it's so rad.
Yeah. I've
Speaking for someone.
Hats. Yeah. You can wear hats around the world. They've done it in different airports, in Albuquerque to Tokyo. You can get a go Bears. It's
absolutely. I was in an international airport in Thailand and I saw someone wearing a Berkeley sweater from afar and I was like, go Bears.
Yeah, Johnson's in.
You have that connection. I'm speaking as someone who is currently international. The alumni have just come together. The students that I know in my program that are Berkeley alums, like we get together, we've met, we didn't know each other at Cal, and yet we know each other now. I think this weekend, I saw someone in a Berkeley sweater at Cairns, up by the Great Barrier Reef. And so you see this connection that you have. I have friends who are part of international chapters in the Philippines, in Thailand, and they really have created this family and this community just based off of where we went, because you have that shared experience. My extended family is in Taiwan, and they all knew what Berkeley was. And then when I told them I was going to the University of Pennsylvania for grad school, they asked me about Penn State football because they knew Penn State more than they knew UPenn. So you have that international renown there too, which is really important.
Could I backtrack for a moment? I want to ask, how did you make friends and build those connections while you were a student that you took with you after you graduated? Was it through clubs? Was it in classes? Did you participate in research projects? I know Berkeley has an amazing undergraduate research apprenticeship program. What were some of the ways that you made those lifelong connections?
Yes to all.
Love it.
Yeah, clubs. Yeah, clubs. I was in a fraternity. I was, similar to what Annalise was saying. I took 3 different languages. Just because it was something that I wanted to explore. And I think Filipenko is still teaching Astro 10. Yes. Take the class. Take the class. It's awesome. You won't regret it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's clubs, in the martial arts club, that was really great. Intramural sports, that was really fun. You get to meet people there. Research, it was so awesome to be just to be part of these, hopefully world-changing experiences.
Mhm.
Alumni really want to meet students also. So it's not hard to make the connections. If you're near an alum, they will ask you about yourselves. I don't know, they just can't resist. I think probably myself included, but yeah, you can join alumni clubs immediately after becoming a student. And a lot of those clubs' point is to keep students and alumni connected together. So it's intentional, but you can also just go to football games. I mean, that's a huge thing. If you can't make them, now increasingly it's so easy because everything's online half the time. So, I mean, whatever you had to do prior, now there's so many virtual events where you can interact with people in the chat too. I mean, it's just, you'll find out if you go here, everyone just wants to stay connected to Cal. It's really weird. Like none of us panelists were friends. I don't think were any of you before this. And now I'm like, these are my best friends. We've been talking for 40 minutes. And I'm like, I'm going to hang out with them all the time.
Yeah, I was very fortunate in that my really close group of friends, it was actually my freshman floor. And so we got super close, and we're still close years later. When I was an RA, I really tried to make that happen for my residents. And it happened for about half of them. And I saw that like they're being bridesmaids for each other right now. And so you really get that connection. You're living with these people, but that doesn't mean that you have to be best friends with your floor. I also know students who made really good friends elsewhere, and that's okay too. And it's figuring out where you fit and where that connection is. A lot of my research family, we are all at different schools across the world right now, and we still text and we're still trying to make sure that everyone's doing well. We're celebrating each other's papers, getting degrees, things like that. My godson is actually from his mom was the president of a club that I was in at Berkeley, and we just kept in touch throughout the years, and now I have a godson. And so you make these connections in different ways, and he's so cute, and I spoil him so much. It's great.
And he's going to go to Berkeley.
And he's going to go to Berkeley. He has no other option.
Darn straight.
Have to.
Kevin, how about you?
Yeah, let's see, one of my best friends, I have been meaning to get with him, but we're actually going to get lunch in Queens. One of my best friends from, that I met, he was my floor mate's boyfriend. And, we that's how don't ask how, it's just like you meet people and you just click with people, your freshman year. Let's see what else. I was going to hang out with someone that I met sophomore year through a group of friends. Later, on Sunday, New York, like I have a friend that I often like do trivia night with, like weekly, in San Diego. I would say like I had a really good friend who went between LA and San Diego that I saw often. Like I have friends from Cal that, came down, and we've done like road trips up and down the California coast when I was back there. Just a variety of different areas through, different clubs and the people that you've met. I've also, met people like Wells and San Diego, a lot in the LA area, and then like I went up very often to hang out with them. So just a variety of different areas that I was also in the co-ops too for 2 years. I was in a fraternity briefly. So I think some of those areas, but also some clubs. And I would say for me, it wasn't always just, sometimes, groups of people, they stay together or some fall apart. But at the same time, there are just some people that I just value those connections. And, I have good friends from many different corners of campus and many different communities. And I felt very blessed that I took the time and opportunity to really stretch myself and to really explore different areas of the school, because you never know like who you meet and the experiences you get. So always keep an open mind.
Most definitely. I want to transition quick and bring in a question that we received from a student in the chat. They said, why do you think there's this, oh, sorry, the chat is moving. Why do you think there's this conception that Cal is cutthroat and competitive? I hear this a lot. I don't know whether this is true and would like to know if it is true in your experience. If it wasn't, why do you think people make this claim? If this was true for you, is it bad as it might seem?
Well, I mean, I think cutthroat has kind of a negative connotation, honestly. I mean, for my experience personally, I was kind of the, proverbial big fish in a small pond in my high school. And then when you go to Berkeley, you're with everybody else who was the big fish in their small pond. So it wasn't that it was cutthroat necessarily, because that's people, backstabbing another, but competitive in a good way, because it then forces you to show your best. That was my experience. So I don't think it was competitive in a bad way. I mean, the lower division, core courses do tend to, they call them weeder courses for a reason, right? But I mean, if the thing is that it helped for me, it helped clarify whether it was that I really wanted to do this or whether I didn't want to do this. So it wasn't about, again, cutthroat, but it was really about, I guess I wasn't as good as I thought I was at this, because these people are amazing. So I'm going to do this. And oh, wow, I found my niche where I could succeed and I could excel. And I think that is, I think the people who call it cutthroat have a different perception of what it actually is. I mean, it's smart people, trying to do their best. And if that energizes you, then, go get it.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I never felt that way. I think especially if you've been let into Cal, that would be where I would say that would have been the competitive cutthroat part. In terms of that phrasing, not that I agree with that connotation, but if you're in, yes, definitely, to Mark's point. I mean, you're just around a lot of the people who are naturally smart and or high achieving, often both. And so that does make for challenges. I think that some people might conflate terms when they talk about this. So for example, I will say some majors are very hard and take a lot of time. And so some of the sciences are known for that. The design and architecture classes are very time consuming. English, while not being hard in that sense, was hard in the sense where your entire grade for a semester is comprised of maybe 2 papers. So there's a lot of, it's up to you to make sure that you're in this and you do well the 1 or 2 opportunities you have. So hard, yes. Competitive and cutthroat, I didn't experience personally. And if anything, got on so well with my cohort of people, and it was really fun to be that way. And I always had great resources offered to me in terms of support for tutoring. So I'm excellent at English, not so great at physics. When I was taking Astro 10 with Filipenko, great class, but some of that was simply not in my wheelhouse. And I didn't feel like I got left behind. We had excellent opportunities where the people who were very good at that tutored those of us who needed some assistance. So I never experienced that. I think it's hard and I think it's demanding. And I think if you choose to go here, you're signing up to be with a bunch of people who chose to be in a demanding and brilliant atmosphere. But you're also all there together. And so I think that there's an overarching sense that you are there to succeed. And I don't think people are trying to push anyone out in any regard. I think everyone, if you've gone into Berkeley, I at least never felt like anyone was judging anyone. Once you're in, like you're in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, if I could jump in and echo that, I had the opposite experience of cutthroat. I remember oftentimes on my very first day of a lecture, I would walk up to a student, introduce myself and say, hey, do you want to make an outline on Google Docs together? And you, me, and we can ask like 2 other people in this class, and we can all take notes in real time during class and create the outline for the course. And that was one way of making friends. It was one way of making study groups, and it was very collaborative and it was very supportive. And that definitely got me through some of the more quantitative courses that I am clinically incapable of. I don't even know how I got into like a quant type master's program, because My math skills were not there.
Sorry, Esteem. I wasn't commenting on your comment, but Google wasn't around when I was in college.
Oh, for sure. That's okay. Yeah. Johnson, how about you?
Yeah, speaking from someone who did a science, Chem 1A is Introduction to Chemistry. When I took it, there were 1,500 students. So it's a lot of students all taking it at the same time. And what me and my group of friends started saying is it's not students against students, it's students against the test or students against the exam, because we made study groups and we had opportunities to work together. Cal, like Annalise was saying, also has so many opportunities for you to get tutoring, for you to get the extra help that you need. And it's not a reflection on you as a student. I know my first year, I was like, I was smart in high school, and now I am not smart. I don't understand. It is a reflection on me as an individual and my intelligence if I get tutoring, and realizing that that's crap and that everyone is smart and everyone's here for a reason. And just because something doesn't click immediately is not an attack on you at all. This is also where I like to plug CNR, because I am in the college, or was in the College of Natural Resources. We're one of the smaller colleges. And so I went from having 1,500 people in a class in Chem 1A to having about 20 to 30 students in my upper division courses. And we got very close during that time. A lot of the courses from my major, microbiology, are only taught one semester or the other. So everyone's sort of on the same trajectory. And so we all took classes together. There was a group of 12 of us, and we got lunch with our advisor every semester just to catch up, see how everyone's doing, see if there's anything that needs to change. It also counted as our advising session, which was great. Get two birds with one stone. But it's about finding that community for yourself and realizing that a lot of the time everything's there and you just have to reach out to get it. And it's there.
I have a fondness for the College of Natural Resources. It's where I met my partner. We've been together 8 years. So even though that wasn't my department, I quite like that department.
I met my
It's a
husband
fantastic
at Cal
department.
too. My husband is also an English major at Cal. Yeah, you can't really, you'll find out all that if you come to Cal, you will never leave Cal. It will always be with you.
Well, Cal never leaves you either.
Correct.
That's a sweet way of putting it. That's true. We have about 5 minutes. There's a couple more questions from the chat I wanted to get to. I wanted to ask this one that a student put in. Will your major decide your career path?
No.
No. Emphatic no.
I also agree. No. It can, but it doesn't have to. That was like a lightning round of a no.
In a good way, though. In a good way. You know what I mean?
It doesn't have to.
Because Cal also encourages you to explore and to figure out what that is. I came into Cal with two very different ideas of what I wanted to be, and I did neither of those and came up with two very different things that are also tangentially related to what I do now, but also kind of not at all. And it's about the skills that you learn doing and learning at Cal that is applicable later on.
Before the next person asked, there's a student who said, "Hi, I joined halfway through the presentation. And do you mind telling us your majors?" So I'll start out. I did a double major in rhetoric and political science. Annalise, what did you study again?
I got a BA in English literature. I came in so sure I was going to do English and Spanish double. And then I kept getting distracted by so many courses that were not part of that I left with a degree in English.
How about you, Kevin?
I was a BS in mechanical engineering and a minor in public policy. And now I started working. I mean, it's more related sort of like, but more on a systems level. There's a lot of things that I need to refresh. But it gives you a way of thinking and dissecting, I guess, in engineering, like how to really problem solve, really how to break things down. And I think you do have an edge just having that sort of, rigor, even if it's super theoretical or quantitative, and even if you don't really work with it, but just the quick-wittedness that in the way that you think about things is very important. So you can apply it to many different problems versus just certain ones.
Johnson, what was your major?
I have a BS in microbial biology with an emphasis on host pathogen interactions and a minor in education.
Mark?
BA in economics. No minors, No, I guess I was two courses shy of the minor in computer science, but I decided to go in a different direction. The weird thing was that I ended up working in computer science anyway.
I mean, you'll have a degree from Cal is the
Right.
bottom line.
Right.
In one thing or another, and you can generally turn that into a career.
Yeah, I mean,
I would absolutely agree that I think Berkeley gives you the skill sets that you can apply broadly, regardless of what that is. My partner, she did environmental science, then she went to NASA, and now she's working in biopharmaceutical consulting. So I think, you have that opportunity to explore and develop, and I think that's what college is for. So I want to thank you all for joining tonight. Thank you all for the questions and the comments that have come in from all of the students who are watching, making their decisions to hopefully come to Berkeley and join us. Want to let you know that stay on. There's going to be breakout panels for you to talk to some alumni. There's also going to be infinity groups for you to talk to folks in your infinity group in the breakout panels. And I hope that you stay connected with Berkeley. I hope that you come to Berkeley. It has transformed my life. And so many of the folks that I talked to, it has transformed their life too. Links are below, and please check it out. And we look to keeping in touch with you moving forward.
Go Bears.
Go Bears.
Cheers.
Everybody.